my ancestors said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess to favor freedom and deprecate agitation are like men who want crops without pulling up the ground. They want the rain but can't stand the thunder or the lightning. They want the ocean but they're scared of the awful roar of the waters. He said the struggle we have might be moral, or it might be physical, or it might be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. He said, people can only be controlled to the extent that they allow themselves to be. He said, a man may not get all he works for in this world, but you will work for all that you get. He said, if these injustices heaped upon us are ever going to stop, we must pay for their removal. With our blood, with our lives, with everything we own. But he who wants to be free must himself strike the first blow. Frederick said, for 20 years I prayed on my knees to God. For 20 years I prayed on my knees to God, but the good Lord gave me no freedom till I got up off my knees. This black woman born Araminta Ross, who changed her name to Harriet Tubman, was hit in the head as a young child with a heavy weight that the slave master threw. The weight was not intended for Harriet, but Harriet loved people so much that she jumped in front of another slave and took the blow. And from then on, she used to have blackouts, seizures, for the rest of her life. And then this black woman came to a point, and I believe Harriet Tubman was one of those women of the church chosen by God. She had to be. Was she AMBZ? Harriet Tubman was a member of AMB Zion. I didn't even know that. As was Frederick Douglass, I believe. Yes. So she comes from this church movement here. Harriet Tubman said, I made it up in my mind that I had a right to one of two things. If I couldn't have one, I would surely have the other. Freedom or death. She said, either I live free or I'd rather not live at all. So Harriet Tubman runs away from Buckhead, Maryland. And she makes over 30 trips to the South to help other Africans get free. The chief conductor of the Underground Railroad, barely 100 pounds, 5'2", soaking wet, but a giant of a woman. Greatest woman to ever walk American soil. Not black, period. There's no white woman you can name that compares to Harriet Tubman. So this year, they're supposed to put her on the front of the $20 bill. Now I want y'all to hold them claps for a minute, because When Harriet Tubman retired from the military, because you know she was a nurse in the Civil War, and a spy in the Civil War, and a scout in the Civil War. And there's something else y'all don't know about Queen Mother Harriet. She's the only woman to lead troops into battle during the Civil War. And just like with the Underground Railroad, she never lost a soldier or ran her train off the track. Harriet Tubman was denied an Army's pension after all she did when she retired. She was up here in Auburn, New York, where the Harriet Tubman home is. And I'm so proud to say that the Harriet Tubman home in Auburn is one of the few black historic houses that we still own. And is that AMEZ too? Mm-hmm. That's AMEZ as well. They own it. And please, Rev, don't let them give it to the Park Service. I heard. Don't do that. Give them another hand, y'all. AMEZ. Hold on to that. Hold on to that. Because we don't own nothing. They own the Frederick Douglass house. They own the Carter G. Woodson house. The white man owned all of our black history places, sacred places. And we have to stop giving them up. We can't let them get the Harriet Tubman home. And if y'all never visited that home, shame on y'all. Shame on y'all. That's only a 2-hour ride. You need to take all your kids to go and walk through the house where Harriet Tubman lived. That woman built a hospital for black folks when the hospitals wouldn't take us. She had a hospital. She had an elderly home. She had a farm. And she would sell animals on the farm to raise money to pay for the institutions. Who did she think she was? And then she had a husband who was a coon. She ran away, came back for him. He had found another woman and said he really wasn't interested into the liberation business. So Harriet Tubman married another brother.
Amen.
So when Queen Mother Harriet was old and gray, they sat her down and they said, was you ever scared? She said, I got scared sometimes, but whenever I got into a situation, I would call on my Lord. And she said, every time I called on my Lord would find a way to get me out of that situation. She said, I didn't only pray to God, she said, I talked to God. Harriet Tubman said, there was plenty of times the white man almost got me. Remember, her slave master put a $50,000 bounty on Harriet's head. That's the equivalent of millions today. She helped save her mother and father, got them out of slavery just before they were sold off. And if you ever read the way she escaped them, it's like a superhero story. Harriet Tubman rode on a horse in a wagon straight to the house where the mother and father was, and I think the father was scheduled to be sold the next day, loaded them on the wagon, took off. And the white folks is chasing her, shooting and everything, and she going with the horses with her mommy and daddy on the back. She was ride or die. Harriet Tubman said, only got one regret. Just one. She said, I freed hundreds of slaves. I could have freed thousands more. But the problem is my people didn't even know that they were slaves. What does she mean by that? These were people with chains who didn't even know. They thought the white man was better. They would rather stay than go because the white man has brainwashed us into thinking the best thing we can be is second best to him. And Harriet Tubman carried a rifle. She wasn't no joke. A couple times a few people tried to turn back. And guess what she would do? Clink, clank. And her exact words was, dead niggas tell no tales. You will go on or die here. Those were her exact words. So if you wonder why she never lost anybody, okay, they knew Harriet would have took their life. And why could she not let them go back? Because they would have told the whole escape route. You know Negroes can't shut up. So brothers and sisters, I say all that to say that we have a great history, great ancestors, a great past, a great legacy, and we will be great again. But I got to give you one more quick one if I can. Dr. Booker T. Washington, born a slave in West Virginia, walks to Hampton, Virginia. He goes to Hampton Institute, can't afford the tuition, so he asks to work his way through Hampton Institute. He works through Hampton Institute. He graduates. The white principal at Hampton gets a phone call from Tuskegee, Alabama. We need a Negro to come down here and teach black people how to make a living, give them an education. Booker T takes the job. He goes to Tuskegee. He gets to Tuskegee. His first school was an old barn, an old building. And then when the first students of Tuskegee came and they said, where's our building, where's our dorm, where's the lecture, where's the bathroom, Booker T. Washington rolled up his sleeves and said, you standing on it. He made the students of Tuskegee make their own dormitories. They cooked their own food. They sewed their own clothes. They even made their own bricks. They became so popular for brick making that the white man would come to Tuskegee normal school to buy the bricks of the students. And then Booker T said, I need me a science teacher. He heard of a black man from Iowa by the name of Dr. George Washington Carver, the first African American to get a PhD in agricultural science. He begs him to come to Tuskegee. George Washington Carver comes to Tuskegee. When George Washington Carver was a child, they castrated him, princess. He was raised by a white family who removed his penis so he wouldn't take advantage of their daughter. If y'all ever wonder why George Washington Carver had no children, and he always had a very high-pitched voice, his reproductive was removed. And I believe that has something to do with how spiritual he was with those plants. Because they say he could talk to the plant and make the plant grow. I think that has something to do with his trauma. Okay, sometimes when you go through trauma, spirit opens up to you in a different way. So Booker T. Washington comes to Tuskegee. Carver comes to Tuskegee. He asks Booker T, where's my apartment? Where's my lecture hall? Where's my science lab? Booker T said, I'm sorry, George, but this is all we have. And at the time, George Washington Carver was considered the #1 scientist in America, not black, period. He turned down what would have been equal to $1 million deals by the pharmaceutical companies and the government to come work for Tuskegee. When Booker T told him he didn't have nothing, guess what Carver did? Dr. George Washington Carver didn't complain. He went to the trash dump of the students of Tuskegee. And out of the trash, he took copper, plastic, aluminum, tin, and from the garbage of children, Dr. George Washington Carver, from the garbage of students, gave you more than 500 products from the sweet potato, more than 300 products from the soybean, more than 200 products from the peanut, the soybean, and the sweet potato. He had nothing and gave you everything. Harriet Tubman started with nothing and achieved it all. Frederick Douglass, Marcus Garvey, Sojourner Truth, Martin Delaney had nothing and made something. And here you are with everything and have made nothing. At the end of the day, the white man can only do to us what we allow him to do. Once we recognize that we are God's manifestation of the one supreme invisible force of the universe. Once you recognize that the only thing greater than you is the I am, we will be able to do anything we want. The solution begins with recognizing and getting in contact with our divine selves. I'll leave you with a quote. And after we're done, I'm going to sign some books. I'm not going to do the Q&A session here. We're going to do it at the Rafi Green Center. 1423 Fillmore. All of you are welcome. It is free. The Rafi Green Center. 1423 Fillmore. How do you spell Fillmore? Fillmore, 1423 Fillmore Avenue. That's where we're going after I sign books. And if you have any questions, you want to have a conversation, tell me how much you can't stand my guts, you can do it at the Ralphie Green Center. Frederick Douglass, my ancestor, said, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. Those who profess the faith of freedom and deprecate agitation are like men who want crops without pulling up the ground. They want the rain but can't stand the thunder or the lightning. They want the ocean but they're scared of the awful roar of the waters. He said the struggle we have might be moral, or it might be physical, or it might be both moral and physical, but it must be a struggle. He said, people can only be controlled to the extent that they allow themselves to be. He said a man may not get all he works for in this world, but you will work for all that you get. He said if these injustices heaped upon us are ever going to stop, we must pay for their removal. With our blood, with our lives, with everything we own. But he who wants to be free must himself strike the first blow. Frederick said, for 20 years I prayed on my knees to God. For 20 years I prayed on my knees to God, but the good Lord gave me no freedom till I got up off my knees and start praying with my feet. He said, if you want respect from white people, why do you look for pity? The man who pities you will never respect you, and the man who respects you has no need for pity. Brothers and sisters, let me call on my ancestors, because if it wasn't for them, I would not be here, because it is through them that Almighty God has allowed me to be here. I call on Father Belly and Mother Selah. I call on Mother Jenny and Grandma Betsy. I call on Grandpa Isaac. I call on my grandmother, Young Betsy.
All me know, enough of them no want to see me rise. That's why them set up a road in my life. Tell them no cross my line. Ooh, face electrocuted dog we bite. Tell them not try. This and nobody's no so want this and no I guess I was so right when I bunny bad mind. No ties with no for funky guys, licky bar flies. Me nah let them in on me life. Striptease I wanna cross the road, but me not take off me clothes. Some my pumpkin secret on the belt them gone below. And only your friend can be your foe. Now go make them try me oh. One thing me know, oh, say to search the flex me let them in sometimes. First check them out if them red eye. Tell them no cross my line. Boy, fancy electrocuted dog a bite.